must be able to respond to the keynote of the new world in order, obviously, to be in it. One in the new world is meant to live in and know truth. Hence, truth revealed, as I said earlier today, is a part of this new world in the new age. Also, the new world will be filled with bliss and transcendental knowledge. Therefore, transcendental meditation will be the teaching of the new age. And all will be initiates. One will awaken to his initiation, and truly one will know the truth. The truth is that really the real world is within you. And the real world will never be found by anyone lost in the intellect. There must come a time when the real world within and the world of matter on the outside both are real together. This is called heaven on earth. Now, the world of illusions is the shadow of a real world, and when one turns within and transcends, one discovers that one is really leaving the shadows in order to grasp the reality by which these shadows are cast. And these shadows are cast in one's consciousness. Now all things become real to one, and the meaning of life takes on its true meaning. And all fear, doubts, and uncertainty disappears. One now truly develops the love of God that surpasses all else. For God is love. Incidentally, it's a vibration. And we too are moving into love. Moving into love is all-encompassing. Then our focus, I should say, is now on the real of eternity, never again to be overshadowed. For we're now one with the Father. This is the goal of human evolution. As I said earlier today, we do not remain for eternity with the Father, much the same as the son grown up doesn't live forever under his father's roof. He starts out on his own, reaches his own, project and so forth. Same thing applies here. The key word is the new age. The Aquarian age is essentially a colored age. The spectrum in this age will be of a higher and lighter color tones of the higher spectrum. And the humans to live in and enjoy this atmosphere must also respond to this spectrum or this keynote. Azure white light is the highest concept of a human. It transcends physical vision. And for one to see this, it has to be a spiritual experience. The human relationship with the three primary colors of red, blue, and yellow is that one thinks in yellow, one feels in red, and he wills in blue. As we know, when the etheric body and the archetype is in complete harmony, then one has good health. As the etheric body is the vitalizing principle of the physical body. And the archetype is the heavenly master mold of the physical body. All discordant emotions, negative thinking, and destructive passions, such as anger, hatred, lust, and above all else, fear, introduces discord into the vital and physical bodies. This then disturbs the keynote of both bodies. This in turn reacts upon the physical body. And it reacts upon the physical body as lack of ease. So we say disease. Same thing. And the person thinketh in their heart, so they are. It is predicted that the greatest change that will occur in the beginning of the new age will not be in the form of organized religion, but in the new awareness, attitudes, and concern for others, and the sense of sharing with each other. Now the veils will be lifted from the people's minds, and they will then begin to really understand who they are, where they came from, and certainly where they're going. They'll also know that the way of life is not materiality, it is all spirituality. Now to augment this nature will provide geological changes to produce a new vibration and a new environment. This environment to live in and also be able to rapidly evolve in. For the earth will have undergone a cleansing process that will have eradicated the low destructive vibrations that humanity has created all over this world. Because they were consumed by insecurity, they were consumed by fear, greed, dishonesty, and corruption. This all will never appear in the new age. Why people of low consciousness cannot stay in the new age on this earth. The reason it cannot stay is due to the fact that when the high vibrations come in, this will not cause one of the low vibrations to raise their vibrations. Rather, they would have their lower passions intensified, so there would be nothing gained by their being any longer on this earth. Because the object and the concept is not to raise your lower passions or increase your lower passions. It's to diminish them. Those who will stay are those who have taken the high road to spirituality or a sincere religious way of life. Now the animals who are now love pests of humanity are the ones nearest to becoming humans. The devotion of an animal in this life continues in the astral even stronger than it was on earth. Also, when there's a bond made between an animal and a human being, that is never lost, all down to eternity. The separation of the sexes took place 16.5 million years ago. This was in the middle incidentally of the third group race. It took 1 million years to fully accomplish this particular separation. Now the separation of the sexes took place because the androgynous being created on the outside of himself a woolen yoga. But because of the nature of life at that particular time in the early days of the human race, it was so rough and rugged, and the oncoming baby was carried in a cocoon on the outside of the body. Because being fully able to, by woolen yoga, create on their own, and things being so rough at a particular time, most of humanity stood still off. So the wife got together and they said, in order to save humanity, the new oncoming children had to be carried inside. Therefore, the androgynous being, one was changed over to becoming a total female. The other was changed over to becoming totally male. Not totally so. There's always 60, 40, 40, 60. But it took 1 million years to accomplish this. Before there was a fully developed female and a fully developed male. This is only an interim process. It was created out of necessity. Now, in the future, and not too distant future, creation will be mental. Mental by, I say, spiritual imagination. This is the way creation will be done. This is the way we were created. We're mental creation. Now, humanity came onto this earth in waves. And the first waves are now the highly evolved, such as the spiritual, the holy men, swamis, and so forth, and those on the spiritual path. The second wave are those now caught in materiality, such as those in high finance, leaders of industry, big business, and so forth. And for many of them, money is their God. They're totally involved in materiality. The third wave are mostly upper class, middle class people, leaders of lesser nature, politicians and statesmen, leaders of education, in the fundamental religion, and so forth. Now the fourth wave are now the middle class in the management position. The owners of small business, small stores, shops, smaller types of enterprises, and what have you not. And the fifth wave are now mostly skilled and unskilled laborers, such as foremen in factories and farmers and policemen and firemen and this sort of thing. The sixth wave are those who not too far back have left their primitive way of life and are in direct contact with organized society in this world enterprise. The seventh wave are the primitives, still in the jungle, still in the forest, but all have now been contacted, ministered to. What? These are the races of people, the waves of people. Everybody didn't come in the same time. When they came in, I say they came in waves. The marked difference with the decision the individual has made concerning his coming life, it makes an indelible impression upon the consciousness, which can never be forgotten. And this accounts for the vague and haunting subconscious memory or feeling that accompanies many on our earthly decisions and on our decisions. Also, much of this is based too on vivid experiences. Now, basically, these experiences are concerning lessons we intended to learn while we're still on the other side. And over there at this point, one exists in extreme bliss, and also in the essence of love. Therefore, one always chooses rightly over there, and wisely so, and we're never given more than we can handle. Yet it sometimes appears otherwise when we're over here. This is due to one's limited vision, and our being caught up in action contrary to the Dharma that we're supposed to be living out. Now, the last thing that happens before you come over here is that the life that you're going to live is run off before you. I think I mentioned that earlier. Okay. The reason for this is that if you live your Dharma, you start to do something or get into a certain field or a certain type of activity and you feel good about it and you have a talent for it and you're happy while you're doing it, that's your Dharma. In other words, you're living your script. But if you start to do something that's not in your script or in your Dharma, then you don't feel good about it, you have misgivings about it, you're filled with doubts, and it probably won't work out anyway. So, a lot of people get into a lot of things that there's no future for them. Because for one reason or another, they're influenced in that direction. This is why there's very little sympathy, incidentally, for a suicide on the other side. Mainly because they're the ones that make the decision. They're the ones that said, let me live this life, let me live it this way. This is the way it was laid out. That was your decision. Now, the soul and the conscience are one and the same thing. Your conscience bothers your soul trying to tell you something. Same thing. This is why, again, that there's not much sympathy for suicide over there. And by and large, basically, you probably only commit suicide about once. Maybe twice. There was a man in the early days of meditation. I knew him before he was a meditator. And he was a very successful businessman. A very beautiful home. And he was going with a very lovely girl and all this sort of thing. But on a technicality, the government put him out of business. So he lost his home, and the government got most of his money, one thing or another. So his girlfriend left him. She walked off and left him too. So he wound up in a little room, all by himself, boarding house, and came to me and said, you know, I came to Transcendental Meditation. I was very successful. I was doing fine. And he said, now, he said, everything's falling apart. Just what is this meditation? I didn't know. Time. So why should they had a little trip and he came back and I told him the story. I looked at this. Closed his eyes, and then opened up his eyes. He said many, many times he's come to this same point. Each time he's committed suicide. Never learned. Now this time, because he's a meditator, he came to the same point, same thing happened, but he didn't commit suicide. Now it'll never happen again. And now he's back in business, and after he's a woodlark, and he says now he thinks if the girl hadn't married, he wouldn't have committed suicide. Isn't that a whole little story? Seed atoms are powerful centers of force, for they contain the subliminal essence of the experience of all of one's past. Their stored up forces are permanent and indestructible because they're part of the spiritual nature of the humans, and into them has been incorporated the sum of all that has been learned throughout one's journey through the vast cycle of earth life. The seed atom is located in the heart and survives death, and it is the human's book of destiny, arbiter of one's fate, both during one's physical life as well as during one's time in the higher world beyond the physical. The soul of the human is bound to the wheel of birth and death, and in passing from one plane to another, back and forth, one learns by many and varied experiences therein. In order for one to function on any plane of existence, it is necessary to use a body composed of the materials of that plane. And a body can only be built through the medium of a seed atom of the same nature as the material needed. Therefore, it follows that both birth and death four vehicles making up the human's composite being were given by various groups of celestial hierarchies who guided the destiny of this or our solar system. The seed atom of the physical body was given by the lords of the flame, or Leo. The seed atom of the vital body was given by the lords of wisdom, or Virgo. The seed atoms of the astral or desired body was given by the lords of individuality, or Libra. And that of the mental body by the lords of mind, or Sagittarius. The formative and combining processes are under the lords of form, or Scorpio. And their job is to amalgamate the essence of fire, earth, and air and blend these with their own spiritual water. In the human, air symbolizes the mental powers. As a result, the better mind one molds in the course of a lifetime, the wider and freer is the scope allowed in building for the next life. And the purer and the finer will be the mental substances that he builds with. Maharishi used to say, people start with common clay in building their body. They finally come up to the finest clay like you think fine china out of. Very fine and very pure. This is why, with so many when Maharishi came onto the world, particularly the United States and probably Europe too, he ran into very dense bodies. And I think he sincerely believed when he was teaching the cities that people would learn to levitate. Then again, did you ever see lead float? I never did. And I think that's pretty much what he was working with. But at the beginning, I asked him, I said, where in the world did you come up with this, Maharishi? He said, the Shankaracharya told me now it's time I should start teaching Siddha. Well, that might have been the Shankaracharya's idea also. So people have an idea that a holy man is all-seeing, all-knowing. He's all-seeing and all-knowing in certain departments, but not all-seeing and all-knowing in other departments. Those things he has to learn mentally about, experience it, and so forth. Regardless of the fact that he's totally a holy man. So the finer will be the mental substance that one builds with. The finer the quality of the mind essence, the more amenable it is to the controlled spirit. And also the more receptive it is to impulses from the inner plane. Clean living greatly attunes the various seed atoms, and this is very important in life. Fire represents the desired nature of the human, so the subjugation and purification of this desire determines the gauge of the desired seed atom, which is located in the liver. This is why the expression liver means to live. The innermost core of every human's physical body is spark of celestial fire, which comes from the hierarchy of the luminous flames, the lords of Leo, who gave to humanity the germ or seed atom of the dense body, the temple of the indwelling spirit. The rhythm of every other atom of the body is set to the tune of this atom, which in turn sounds the keynote of the spirit. A person of low consciousness emits a low, unsteady note, the atoms of the body moving discordantly. One who is spiritually awakened emits a note in a very high key, and the body atoms rotate in a harmonious motion, producing bodies of a finer texture and subtler composition. Those on the spiritual path should at all times strive to maintain poise, balance, self-control. Also try to stay away from discordance, within or without, as one needs to maintain good health and mental well-being. Now, when the individual experiences are concluded in the inner worlds, and one is ready to return to this earth, the seed atoms set the gauge of the quality and the quantity of the material to be used in the construction of the new body. When the previous earth life has been devoted to materiality or worldly pursuits, the material attracted to the physical body is gross and is very heavy, with very little of the finer substance of the desired world incorporated into it. And also very little of the etheric region, you might say, being built in the new vehicle. Now, the low vibratory rate of the body of the individual will make it very difficult for one to rend the veil, or to contact, or to absorb inner plane truths. This is why you can speak truth to people of low consciousness, so to speak, and it doesn't reach them. They can't hear it. And when you tell them something of a high truth, they view it with derision. It's foolishness. They don't accept it. Now, the more spiritually developed one is, the finer the material that one attracts to itself, and the greater the force which is concentrated within it. And there is often the early manifestation of real genius in the child, Jesus being the prime example. Now, the seed atom of the mind is located in the head and vibrates to a spiritual glue. The desire body atom is centered in the liver, and it harmonizes with the red ray. The etheric seed atom is in the solar system, or in the solar plexus, you might say, and correlates to yellow. The physical seed atom is located in the heart. It may reflect any one of the colors. The one it radiates is in accordance with the evolutionary development of the soul. Also, the seed atoms are embedded not in the physical organs to which each is assigned, but in their etheric counterpart. The seed atom of both the physical and vital bodies are carried by the desire body, when the vital body and the physical body have completed their hybridization. Now, it is the etheric body that stays with the physical body. It does not go over with the desire body. It stays here. And the etheric body is the ghost in the cemetery. People speak so much about it's called the ghost in the cemetery. That's the etheric body. And you can converse with it. Tell you all the experiences it went through and all that sort of thing. For all intents and purposes, it's like something that was like a human has passed away. That's the etheric body. The etheric body, there's no feeling whatsoever in the physical body. All the feelings in the etheric body translated to it by the desire body. In other words, the desire body is the input into the etheric body, and the etheric body is the input into the physical body. But when the lifetime is finished, then the etheric body stays with the physical. Any questions on all? Those forces are hopelessly lost, and they do and will become anomalies in evolution. Free from the lives of birth and death, they wander through space until their very existence is a greater torture than any purgatorial existence could ever be. There are some who in some future life must join another life wave, another Manvantara, and they must pass through all of the earlier stages of development while at the same time they retain a conscious memory and awareness of what they lost. Think of that for a minute. Yet they have hopelessly fallen out of line with the evolutionary progression of the life wave to which they belong. Therefore, they have to join another life wave. There is a limit to evil, which leads to a state of no possibility of being able to make up the karma that's been committed. Again, this is the law of cause and effect. Everyone should think and learn conclusively that life is cause and effect. Whatever you put into causation, be willing to affect it. If you're not, you remove the causation. So this is again the law of cause and effect that controls and directs evolution. It neither rewards or punishes, but it unerringly guides causes to the consummation of the inherent effects. The idea of forced rebirth does not exist, as we're here solely because it is our greatest desire to be here. And this is also in accordance with the law of attraction, which operates again in accordance to our desires and aspirations. Even while we're busy working out our karma in this present life, we are also setting up desires for our next life, such as saying, if I had this life to live over again, this is what I would do, or desire to be the next time. However, between lives, we do have the opportunity to receive higher knowledge of the Spirit. And thereby, we do have the ability to change our desires for this next coming earth life. Even so, sometimes our desires are so strong that we do reject the gentle promptings of the Spirit and again come back to our same desire. Then there are times when we're born in circumstances that are a compromise between the Spirit's teaching and the grosser desires. And this results in a life torn with conflicting desires and restless longings and restless desires. This is the life for one to be fully committed to the influence of the spiritual mind and and one's next rebirth will be in accordance and be assured of the guidance of his higher mind. There will be no old mistakes that one might commit. From this point, there are no unconscious bursts of blind desire. All will be planned for a cosmic future life. This is what many planned when they came into this planet. This is the real purpose of transcendental meditation's regular practice. Fasten your mind on God and your love for Him, and your destiny will be most surely assured. Charity, you might say, is refraining from violence. Austerity is the giving of your desire. Valor is the conquest of one's own self. To know the truth is to see the oneness of the self of God. Greatest strength is to control its promise. Force is the one whose meditation is on divine power. Real happiness is the transcending of both pleasure and pain. Learning is he who discriminates between bondage and freedom. Ignorant is the one who identifies himself with the body. Now, the only right path is the path that leads to me. Heaven is the dominance of the sattva, or sattva in the mind. Hell is pronounced the tamas in the mind. He is indeed rich who is rich in virtue. Poor is he who is discontented. Mean is he who is not the master of his own senses. Godly is he who is not attached to objects of the sense. Divine is he who has overcome both good and evil. Blessed is the human birth. Even the dwellers in heaven desire this birth, for true wisdom and pure love may be attained by the human being alone. One reaches the shore of immortality only by conquering both life and death. Rare indeed is human birth. The human body is like a boat. First and foremost use of which is to carry one across the ocean of life and death to the shore of immortality. The Guru is the skillful helmsman. Divine grace is the favorable wind. If with such means as these one does not strive to cross the ocean of life and death, one is indeed spiritually dead. Control of mind is said to be the highest yoga. It's like the control of an unruly horse which must be made to obey its rider. Leave alone things. I say leave vain things to the vain, and gain tranquility of the mind. Become free from false ego. There are only three ways that one may gain union with God. The soul of all souls meditate on Him through the path of yoga, which teaches self-control and concentration. The path of philosophy and discrimination. Third, the path of worship and meditation. Besides these, there is no other way. Now, transcendental meditation burns away one's sins and impurities and purifies the body, purifies the heart, and also the mind. The mind then desire becomes more desireless. This is said then to be the highest good. So blessed is the one who has no desire. When one loses the sense of right and wrong, one then lives in vain. For one lives steeped in dense darkness, and therefore misses the whole purpose of life itself. Dependent upon the purity of the life of the party concerned. Also, this implies far more than physical chastity. It involves purity of the mind and motive as well. Also, physical chastity cannot be identified with the mere denial of sex expression through repression. Great harm has been done to us who believe that out of negative absence would come a spiritual life. The truth is that one is not truly chaste until chastity flows outward from the soul easily and naturally. For as long as the sex nature is a source of trouble, even though controlled, it is not being fully transmuted into the higher functions of the spirit. It is said that those who find pleasure in vice and pain in virtue is a novice on both paths. And anyone who finds pain in discipline is truly a novice on the path. Now, when the sacred fire force is finally lifted to the brain, it will fill one not with passion, but with light. Those who attain to this state are the heralds of the new race and the new age. Now, in the earth period, when the dense body of the humans being formed, a part of the sex force was directed upward and used for building the brain, the larynx, and the nervous system. The present mode of generation belongs to the transient phase of the human evolution. The organs of reproduction or generation will eventually atrophy, and their function will be taken over by the heart, the larynx, and the brain. Creation of forms will be by mental projection and materialization of images. There is a very intimate relationship between the brain and the creative organ. This is shown by the fact that excessive abuse of the latter inwardly weakens the brain. This is true because both draw upon the same energy substance for functioning. Christ gave this inner teaching to his disciples in the parable of the barren fig tree. Remember that parable? When Jesus Christ condemned the fig, saying, or condemned the tree, saying, "Let no fruit grow on thee henceforth." He was telling his disciples that in the future, reproduction of the kind would be by mental projection and not by physical projection. Male and female means of production as it is today. Now, human now generates, but in the future, the new race will be created by the humans and will be very spiritual because the forces of the lower and the higher natures will now be united. Spiritual and the human being are now one with the Father, and I are one. Transcendental meditation has the power to transform the sexual force from the sex center up to the brain. And the sexual activity is then transformed into activities of mind and spirit, and then control of every cell of the body by the mind. The body is then raised above the forces of physical passion and centers one's whole being in the current of spirit. Then one is truly spiritual. And body heat has now become body light. You've heard a lot about that. Also, I think you've had the experience, or certainly you will have it, where you felt the tremendous heat coming up through the body. Then all at once that disappears, and you feel a coolness in the body. Now you've transmitted that or transformed that into spiritual light. There was an interim of time when it was necessary in order to preserve the human race that the male and female were created from androgynous beings. And so they were. Then as a result of this physical sex between the male and the female was introduced to the main consideration, and the main consideration was reproducing the kind. An intriguing inducement was added to this, and this was the part that the gods themselves put into the sex. And this is what's called the orgasm. And this was put in incidentally as a provocative feature, which for many ages has been a way of life for much of humanity. Then when the first purpose was accomplished, restrictions to unbridled sex were incorporated into the various scriptures, and the new code was introduced for all of humanity to follow. On down to the present day, most have not, however. But now is the time fast approaching when the reproduction of the kind will cease to be physical and will again become a mental projection. The human will now have become a godman, and the physical way of life will be gone. So now is the time when the initiates must move in this direction, where the new path now leads to immortality. And the humans that will now gradually become God. Because we're now entering an age of heaven on earth. A time when those who have heeded the clarion call will live on this earth in peace and in happiness and a golden opportunity to rise to the ultimate height. Certainly all will not be initiates, but they will outgrow violence and petty greed, dedicated to a constructive and progressive way of life, with the love of God along with a constructive universal religion of truth unfolded before them. A consciousness to see and to know and to live the truth will be available to them. For the truth will then free them. For all human beings will be caught up with Christ in the air, which is it says in the Bible. What this means is simply that Christ, which is love in the Aquarian age, all will be caught up with Christ in the Aquarian age, all in love. There is the terrestrial human who must remain with the old age, and there's the celestial human who will move into the new age. The dust person remains in acts from compulsion, compelled. He now operates or acts from free choice. Acts from him are spontaneous. He's no longer driven with that which drives everyone else. He also understands the word to be and not to be. Real if you're enmeshed in reality, and unreal if you're free of reality. You realize reality has no real substance of its own. It is that which is projected from the primal source at the end of an epoch of time is drawn back into the original absolute source. In other words, creation of the mental projection. To those who become liberated, the object of experience becomes unreal. But it is very real to anyone not realized. The only reason the object of experience exists is to serve the purpose of the Atman. Therefore, the Atman, the experiencer, becomes identified with Prakriti. That is to say, the object of experience. So that the true and real nature of both the Atman and the Prakriti may be known. That is to say, the divine creation will then be able to know itself and gain divine mind. The creation of God gaining equal status with the Father. The human going through a myriad of levels of consciousness until the ignorance of the true nature is destroyed by his gaining full knowledge or full awareness of the Atman. And when this is done, then no trace of illusion remains. The human in his long search to find himself in the external world finally discovers that the source of all spiritual wisdom lies within him. So he must go within the secret door. That is to say, the secret door within in order to fathom the hidden mysteries that lie within himself and everyone else. However, before he does come to this inner revelation, he has the advantage of evolving in consciousness and having countless experiences from which he has learned much. The main thing to be learned is where the secret door is located. It's the same as searching all over the world to find out where your glasses are and then discover you've had them on. At least you've had some novel and interesting experiences in your own journey. You can also say that you've learned much. One thing we've learned for certain is that our pain has been caused by our attachments to the things of the external universe. We also discovered that by going within ourselves, we've lost that feeling of loneliness and separateness that we've carried with us for so many ages. The full realization that comes is the realization that there is nothing separate from ourselves. We now know the external world to be merely an appearance, because we no longer identify with the external world. We no longer identify the external world with the Atman. We now see it as a reflection of the Atman. You cannot say in the fullest sense that it is wholly unreal, because it is created and projected and maintained by reality. But again, it's real while you're in it, unreal when you're not in it. Again, what we discover is that the mind has been the instrument, and the world has been the object of experience. In this process, the experiencer, through his many experiences, has now come to know the Atman. That is to say, he now knows his own true nature. The individual mind has been used as a ladder to climb up the wall of life in order to reach the universal mind at Point Bindu, which is above the rim of the well. Now, the earth has never been dependent upon the well, yet the well is totally dependent upon the earth. So the Atman has never been dependent upon the world, yet the world has been totally dependent upon the Atman. Once we've reached the rim of the well of life, all of the false impressions we've stored up for so many ages will fall away from us. They'll fall away before the reality of things as they really are. This is what we call enlightenment. And not only are we in the light, we also discover, incidentally, that we are the light. Now, the Creator who sent forth so many trillion sparks of himself now receives the sparks back to their original source, not just as sparks, but to those who have now matured into the flame. Eternal flame, one with the flame. That is why in a final adjudication there can never be either superior or inferior. Because one now is oneness with the one. I'm not all the saucerites. People in this earth believe in it. And that's where the movement started. Where the beginning is. That's what it is. We had the vision as the students wanted their own movement. It's called SIM. Some of you have heard of that. Students International Meditation Society. began to operate from a scientific point of view. They wanted no acknowledgement whatsoever of the spiritual organization. And they wouldn't even, they didn't believe that the mantra was most pleasing name of God. They wouldn't even accept that. So there was a schism there. But the Students' International Society has been completely dissolved. It doesn't exist anymore.
So I was wondering if you have come to North America for many years, apparently for the reasons galleries in the U.S. Is there any way invitation could be given to him to make his speak his words in Canada?
I doubt it. I think it was much in my case. I need to get out on my own. Being close to the movement over there. Because you don't think there's much progress there as you think. For something that's true, it does not.
जय जय दुष्टमैष कुंभनि कुंभादि दानवकुल संहर्त्री जय जय जगत सृष्टि स्थिति संहारूपी जय जय सुंदरी जय जय प्रणत जन दया गुरुजी जय जय कारिका जीवाचंद्रिका श्री यादवा ओम द्रापारविंद्रम विदारविंद्रगुम हवे हवे दुहवगुम सूरविंद्रम वेरु दक्षं गुरुहूतमिंद्रज्ञ तस्मिनो भगवाधास्मिन्द्रः हरि होमान्ते हे इंद्र भगवान रक्ष रक्ष मैं बाहे दूरान बाई बाई सर्वोपकारान रक्ष रक्ष हे इंद्र आपने ये इदौ येहि ये अक्कुं दीपे तान् नित्यं गुरु अनन्ताय परमाय महा ज्ञानाय वैराग्याय ऐश्वर्याय महा ओम न्यासनाय महा रक्तवज्वलितं केशं मेषवाहनमव्ययं कृतपात्रं दूतं शक्तिं रक्तमाल्यविपूर्णं तन्नो अग्नेवरुणस्य विद्वान् देवदेहेडोवयासीखाः इति वन्दितमश्वोच्चारो विश्वाद्येनाकुन्ति यस्पति हे अग्ने चण्डिहोवार्थमस्य आर्याहि यजमानान् रक्ष रक्ष मां रक्ष दक्षिणे संस्थानमधर्माय ज्ञानाय वैराग्याय सूर्याय अद्भुतयोगि ओमहां यमासनाय नमः नमो मूर्तये नमः कृष्णाभं महिषारूढं ऊर्ध्वकेशालकान्वितं संयुक्तं दण्डहस्तं महाबलं सुवर्णपन्थाभयं क्रोधु यस्मिन् नक्षत्रे यमयेति राजा यस्मिन्नेव परिच्छन्द देवाः तदस्य चित्रगुं हविषायामा हे जपा यमानां रक्ष मां रक्ष भगवन्त्यागान्वितये नमः सर्वदिनेन वर्णाभं संस्कृतोत्तरेश्वरं गजावरदात्मञ्च शङ्करचक्रवन्वितं असुम्बन्धमय नमानमिच्छत्तेन सेव्यां तस्करस्यान्वेषि अन्यमस्मरि साधयित्या नमो देवी निर्देव्ये भक्तु हे निर्दे तदागच्छाच्च यमानां रक्ष मां रक्ष वैशिवे मां मन्नाथानमूर्तये नमः नमो मूर्धचक्राभं आजसुधाक्षिचक्रं सर्वरत्नसमायुक्तं मकरासंसंयुधं अद्वायामि ब्रह्मणात्मकामग्राहाते यमानोपैति हे नमो मूर्धेह भूतु सर्वरत्नसमायुक्तमोहि हे वर्णा अत्रागच्छाच्च सत्योमार्गं यजमानानां सर्वान् रक्ष यस्य वायते अखिले रक्षणं प्रोक्त्या गिरदाब्जगं गदावरदहस्तञ्च शङ्खचक्रसमन्वितं मयगुंसोमव्रतेतव मनस्तनूषु बिभ्रतः प्रजावन्तो अशीमहि हे कुबेर अत्रागच्छ गच्छ यजमानान् रक्ष मां बालय ईशाने मां संसारमकर्माणि ज्ञानान् वैराग्यान् ईश्वर्यान् पद्मस्योपरि ईशानासनाय नमः ईशानमूर्तये नमः ईशानं स्फटिकाभासं नेत्रं व्याघ्रवस्त्रकं मृगं टग्गं वरं शूलं वृषारूढं जटान्वितं समीशानं जगदस्तुरपदिं जिन्वमोसे होमहे वयं ऊषानो यथा वेद सामसद्वते रक्षिता वायुदाद्धस्वस्तरे ईशाने अत्रागच्छागच्छ यजमानान् रक्ष अन्ति होमार्थं यजमानान् सर्वां पाहि सर्वान् पाहि तदुत्तरे ब्रह्मासनाय मुहूर्तये नमः ईदवर्णं चतुर्बाहुं त्रिदण्डाक्षकमण्डलं हंसवाहनं ब्रह्मज्ञानं रथं पुरस्कार श्रीमदसूर्यो वेनावः संज्ञामास्त्रिष्ठा तदयोर्भवः हे ब्रह्मन् अत्रागच्छागच्छ अन्ति होमार्थं यजमानान् रक्ष मां पाहि नैर्दुद्रे हंसवासनामूर्तये नमः नीलमेघसमाराहं गरुडोपरिसमुत्थितं गदावरदास्पञ्च शङ्खचक्रसमन्वितरे समन्वितं उमाभ्ये विष्णु इदं विष्णुर्विक्रमे त्रैधानिकेवलं मूलत्रवयं वायुद्वे त्रयं सर्वं नमस्कारं कृत्वा भगवती जगदुर्गा महाकाली महाचण्डी महासरस्वती श्रीयतां शास्त्रे कुर्मः कुमारी पूजा कन्यका पूजा
What is taking place is now is called Kaumari Puja, that is the worship of goddess Durga in the form of Kumari. And all the young girls will be invited, and whoever they have selected, they will be given the same kind of puja.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.